Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to address this chamber and, indeed, America about the challenges that we face at this time in our country. There are many. Some exist within this nation, some exist overseas, and some have many answers being batted around Washington, whereas others have nearly none. One of those challenges that has hamstrung our youngest generation is the massive dark cloud of student loan debt. When our colleague Senator Sanders from the other side of the aisle addressed student loan debt during the presidential campaign last year, he was correct in identifying a problem. The way that he chose to address it, I would disagree with, as he suggested that we should provide for people something from the government, and I would suggest that the people should provide for themselves. There are two schools of thought, one that the government relies, or one that people rely on the government, and one that the government should rely on the people. So how do you address this massive black cloud of student loan debt that's handicapping our youngest, most creative generation? And that's something that we've started to do today with the filing of H.R. 4584, the Student Security Act. And so I speak to you tonight to speak about a brighter future, a future where individuals are empowered to make decisions for themselves and where they can escape this looming cloud of debt so that they might be free to do things that we have heretofore perhaps taken for granted in this country, like buy a new car, like start a family. In the words of former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, move out of mom and dad's basement. But the most important thing that they're not able to do because of the black cloud of debt that faces them, Mr. Speaker, I would submit, is harness the creativity and the energy that is embodied by their ideas. This is a nation of ideas. And certainly when you are encumbered with over $40,000 of loan debt per person on average, you're not able to get that small business loan. You're not able to start that new business, put those ideas into action, and create jobs. In fact, a recent poll last month indicated that the majority of millennials would sacrifice their very franchise, that is, their right to vote, in exchange for relief from their student loan debt. And all too often heretofore, the words student debt in the halls of Washington have scared up images of free college. Anyone knows, even Mr. Sanders knows, that nothing is free. Someone pays. But that's no excuse to ignore the problem. Why not allow individuals the option and opportunity to pay their own debt? Over 40 million Americans, myself included, are paying back $1.3 trillion in student debt, and yet we've done nothing realistic to address this problem. And how do you address new problems? You must address new problems with new ideas. And so it is H.R. 4584, the Student Security Act, that is just that. I'd stop as an aside to take a moment to thank a young man, Elliot Harding, a student or a recent student from Charlottesville, Virginia, who came to me with this idea. He said, what do we do as a nation if we lose the creativity of an entire generation because of this burdensome debt? Because that's what we're on the precipice of. I contemplated it and decided that this is something that I wasn't able to let happen on my watch. And so as a result, I was all ears as he explained the idea that became student security, and it is as follows. Right now, we know that the Social Security plan that our seniors, indeed my very mother, rely upon to get by on a day-to-day basis is facing an imminent bankruptcy, that solvency is in question, and that by 2034, according to most estimates, there will be no solvency. That's a problem, too. Many of you at home are wondering how I moved from student loan debt to Social Security, and that is the beauty of this idea. To empower individuals to make decisions for themselves and address these very real challenges, the Student Security Act would allow a student to write off $550 of student loan debt for every month that they were willing to voluntarily forego a Social Security benefit. The time value of money, my friends. We have forced no one to do anything. We have in no way, shape, or form changed one scintilla of the promise that is Social Security that we've made for generations to our seniors. But at the same time, we've provided an 11% increase of the solvency of that program, extending the life of that promise without raising taxes and without forcing a single soul to do a single thing against their will. That would translate into $6,600 per student per year that they were willing to voluntarily forego receipt of Social Security benefits. The bill would cap at a maximum of $40,150 in debt release. This would correspond to a 6-year delay in receipt of Social Security benefits, and again, no one would be forced to do a thing, but students who sought to remove from their lives the black cloud of student loan debt would be empowered to, at their own discretion, make this decision for themselves. And as they say in the TV world, but wait, there's more. We ran this program past the Budget Office and then later past the Social Security Administration. What would the impact on Social Security be of empowering people to make decisions for themselves? And by the way, how would we defray the costs as it relates to people who are young now who won't vest in Social Security until later versus the fact that they're students now? Well, the numbers are not good, they are great. We would allow co-signers on loans this option as well to avail their grandchildren or their children of these benefits should they choose to defer receipt of Social Security benefits, again, to the amount of $40,150. That would begin immediately. That would also save, according to the Social Security Administration, $700 billion, while also addressing the very real needs of American students currently hamstrung by a broken college finance system. So, what do we do with the Student Security Act? We're delighted to welcome Congressman Ferguson, Congressman Bratt, Rokita, Messer. We invite our colleagues from both sides of the aisle to look at this outside-the-box, dynamic new way to address the solvency of Social Security and the insolvency of our youngest, most creative generation. The data indicates that we would extend the viability of the Social Security program by 11% of what's needed to make it wholly solvent for perpetuity. That would be the equivalent of a 0.3% increase in the payroll tax, but without a tax increase, but without taking anything from anyone out their voluntary entry into the program. It would lift the black cloud of student loan debt to the tune of over $40,000 per person in a world where 90% of debtors have less than $40,000 in debt. And it would return to the coffers of this indebted nation, by the Social Security Administration's estimates, $700,000. 7/10 of $1 trillion. So I stand here today and ask you to ask yourself, do you trust people to make good decisions for people? Do you believe that people should rely on government or that government should rely on people? Do you believe that this country can harness the ideas and the vision and the energy of what is inherently the most creative generation, always? If we are able to free these young people from burdensome debt that stops them from engaging in key life events like buying a home and buying a car and getting married and starting a business, and do you believe that we need to think outside the box to ensure that we keep the promise that is Social Security that's been made in this country for generations? If you, like me, believe this and you are a member, I invite you to join as a patron on H.R. 4584, regardless of your party affiliation or ideology. If you, like me, as a citizen, believe this is a good idea, I invite you to speak to your representatives. Mr. Speaker, this is an opportunity not only to change how we do business, but to empower people to empower themselves, to create greater opportunity and prosperity in this country by harnessing the energy and ideas of our youngest and largest living generation, and to keep the promise that we've made for generation after generation to people like my mother, that Social Security will remain reliable and solvent. Again, I invite you to join on this legislation or contact your